Okay, I'm currently watching a YouTube video which you can see here is on the Hydrobullet Hydrogen channel, and this guy's created a cell, it's a commercial cell, which separates the hydrogen and the oxygen from electrolysis for the purposes of being able to use them separately. Now this looks like quite an expensive system, and I don't know whether I can make one myself or whether I need to buy some components which I can then use to try and create a hydrogen cell. My primary interest in hydrogen is to have a form of gas which can be generated on site by me as a form of fuel. Now, pure hydrogen, I mean, let's just watch this guy as he sort of like plays around with burning hydrogen. Pure hydrogen gas is very good as a cooking fuel gas. So essentially I'm very interested in the element hydrogen to do that. With my earlier experiments, or mucking about I should really say if I'm really honest, I did a few years ago with hydrogen electrolysis. It was a bit of a challenge. There was lots of chemical byproducts that were being produced which I seem to be allergic to, which was a bit of a negative. And I think that that was to do with various chemicals from the steel I was using getting into the water and kind of like damaging my health. So a lot of precaution has to be taken. This guy here, you can see he's using latex gloves. He's trying to protect himself in many different ways. This is a more advanced apparatus than anything that I played around with. Okay. He's now demonstrating the oxygen being produced. One of my interests for separating hydrogen and oxygen is that my current ethanol fireplace, which I'm using at night and in the morning, I use it like a couple of times a day just to keep the temperature up. Now it's proper autumn. Is to generate oxygen, which can be used to reduce the quantity of oxygen which is taken out of the air in my flat through the combustion of ethanol alcohol. Thus making it healthier or less damaging to burn a fuel of that type. I think the alcohol is still a brilliant fuel, despite the fact that there's a cost-benefit issue with ethanol alcohol in the fact that by volume it costs at a retail level 2 or 3 times the price of fuel oil, and therefore is expensive. And the energy you get out per liter is probably about half that which you get from fuel oil. So, fossil fuels do have the upper hand on some forms of alternative technology. But if you could, let's say, take the oxygen being produced through electrolysis, have your solar panels charging your bank of batteries to produce enough power for a good quality HHO cell, you can have the oxygen being produced, which can increase the quantity of heat being generated by the ethanol alcohol when you're burning it. You can generate hydrogen, which you can store, or alternatively you can use the hydrogen itself as fuel. I'd love to see hydrogen burn. I think it's pretty sexy. I like to see oxygen, being played around with as well. And then you've got more fuel options. One issue with ethanol alcohol as the singular fuel for domestic use is that it's not okay if you want to heat up a whole bath load of water, let's say. But with hydrogen, okay, you've got extra benefits because you can create this little device which you just dunk into the water, have your hose going to the little outlet. You can lighten a hydrogen or HHO flame at the end. You just dunk it in your bath water. The flame, because of the hydrogen and the oxygen, carries on burning in your bath water, and so you can heat up a whole bath just using the combination of the hydrogen and oxygen being produced through electrolysis. So if you have 2 different types of cell, one to extract hydrogen, which you can use for just like on a gas hob, really, okay, which can then be your cooking fuel for boiling water for tea. You can collect maybe oxygen, which you can then release into your ethanol fireplace, thus increasing the quantity of power that comes out of it without suffocating in your own flat because you've got ethanol burning all the time. You can open it up to more possibilities. And so I'm again contemplating the hydrogen could be another thing which I could incorporate as part of my off-grid style living, which I'm trying to create and to establish, so that once I'm in a position to actually buy the property I want, or a property that I want, which I can convert to being off-grid, I'll have more energy options than just like combustion of fuel, which is either bought or made. I mean, I could just use water. Now, when you're taking the 316 grade stainless steel plates and you're putting them into an electrolyzer, and I found this out in my earlier experiments, there's all kinds of impurities in your stainless steel which will end up in the water, making the water itself, pretty hazardous. So you've got to take that water and not put it down the drain, because that's dangerous for the water supply. And instead what you got to do is you got to, collect it and take it down to your recycling plant. And once you've done that, they can then dispose of it in the right manner, but you got to label it properly. So again, it's a question of more and more work being done. But once the plates have actually been properly seasoned through many hours of electrolysis, using possibly days, then there'll be fewer impurities, so you can actually start throwing the water down the drain when you're not using it anymore. As far as electrolytes are concerned, that's another contentious issue. I mean, if you spend a fair period of time studying, or I use the word studying, trying to find out through what other people have said and demonstrated online, you'll see that there's a fair few household products which can be used. Obviously, potassium hydroxide, KOH, namely drain clearer, okay, caustic soda, is a very good one. But I don't want to play around with caustic chemicals. So it would be more a question of creating something like acetic acid from vinegar, which can even be this stuff. Okay, this is just white vinegar, which is used for cleaning, and of course good old-fashioned bicarbonate of soda, used in the right proportions. I mean, that is acetic acid, which I think is acetic acid. I'm not too sure. Can also be used to help clear your drains. When what you do is you put your baking soda in your drain, then you pour the vinegar on top and let it froth for a while, leave it for a bit, and then flush it out with hot water, and that will clear away a lot of the hair and gunk and grease and slime which accumulates in your drains, and in a comparatively environmentally friendly way. All right, so it's an interesting chemical to use domestically, but it can be used as an electrolyte. This is going to take a bit of planning, because this project, which I've been talking about since I've been setting up this channel, is something I really still feel very passionate about. And it's going to take work. Will I be able to do stuff with hydrogen? I mean, the first time I created the hydrogen generator, I'm sure you saw it in one of my earlier videos. Did I put it on this channel? I can't remember. That was using rods rather than plates, stainless steel rods. That was okay, but the HHO production was minuscule, and I didn't actually use any separation technology. Now, separation technology can happen in different ways, through separating the plates, having membranes. I've also seen one guy who just used a tea strainer, because the oxygen bubbles and the hydrogen bubbles are two different sizes. The hydrogen bubbles are minuscule and they can float up through, and the tea strainer would actually separate off the vast majority of the oxygen bubbles, which you can then vent out. But will that necessarily produce a pure enough hydrogen to be safe for what I want to use it for? Because if there's a problem of the possibility of an explosion, then that would be bad. Alright, seriously, as in like, not just negative, but just like real bad. So I want to try and avoid that possibility and that potential, and therefore creating it with a lot of thought make a lot more sense. Obviously this is winter, and autumn to winter time. Maybe this would be an ideal time to start looking into this in greater depth. So I just thought I'd tell you what my thinking is right now. Alright. Obviously with my alcohol fire, I love it, but I don't want to leave it burning too long. You got the health and safety issue, because essentially all we've got is the chimney with tins which are placed into it. Alright, so essentially you can still end up knocking the thing over. Having a house fire still be quite dangerous. Sure, I always have the squirty bottle of water aside, because you can extinguish an alcohol fire with water. But will I be able to control fire? Okay, so that is quite frightening in its own right. And I'm going to be thinking about how to make that even safer, and even thinking about a traditional firebox, which you tend to get for commercial bioethanol fireplaces, as a way of trying to make that more stable, and finding a way of fixing it into the chimney so it's all much more stable, robust, solid, much less likely you're going to kick it over, and to prevent evil. Okay. And then it's a question of, can I then use oxygen as a means of making it more efficient, being able to keep the flame going, all right, without the fire taking tons of oxygen out of my flat, so I can then actually have the alcohol flame going all the time. If I've got, let's say, ethanol firebox set to a low level, but with a trickle feed of oxygen going to the flame, it's taking like a flashback arrestor followed by a metal or stainless steel tube with a little vent out of it so it can blow oxygen onto the flames, or in the direction of the flames. I mean, oxygen itself is not actually flammable, but it is something which increases the rate of combustion. My hope then would be that the natural convection of the fire will allow for drawing the oxygen in, but you can't have the oxygen output too close to it, otherwise you might get some kind of like really, 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 really powerful reaction which could generate too much heat and possibly damage the firebox itself. So the quantity of planning you have to do if you're trying to invent, create, build something which can help you to move towards off-grid is quite intense at times. So again, I just thought I'd tell you where I am right now.